Hello, friends, and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz, and I have an exciting birthday card for you today. Trinity Stamps is turning 7, so we are going to make a pop-up shaker card. Here it is. Happy birthday. Celebrate. You make me smile. You could make this just a shaker or just a pop-up, so I'll kind of walk you through where you might omit things along the way, but I wanted to go all out, and I'm going to start with some stenciling. This is the Tomodachi stencil. I hope I'm saying that right. I love the beautiful pattern that's a little geometric, but it also has some softer lines in it. And I'm coming in from one corner sort of heavy-handed. I have a light to medium teal ink, and then I'll get lighter and then darker again. So I have sort of a lighter stripe of this through the middle. One of the corners I'm not hitting very much, but it's going to get covered up with other cardstock, so I am not worried about that. Off camera, I just wiped down the stencil with a dry cloth, and then I'm coming into that lightest section with some white shimmer ink. So I used my blending buddy for the dye ink, but this pigment ink is really thick and sticky, and so I'm using a domed foam for that one. And then when I peel this off, you can see there's just a ton of shine on there. I'm using a bunch of my favorites today. That is the Celebrate Cut and Foil. The Celebrate is almost 5.5 inches long. It will fill up your card. There is this die that cuts Celebrate. There's one for the shadow, and then there's one the same size as the die that is a hot foil plate. There are actually a bunch of these cut and foils. I will link to just cut and foils below in general. It's an older product, and you guys, they're having a huge birthday sale right now. To be clear, this video is coming out June 18th, 2025. So if you're catching it sort of as it's coming out, definitely check out everything going on at Trinity. In the meantime, I have grabbed an A2 shaker cover, and I am just using some rip and stick tape on all 4 sides of the back of my stenciled panel. And then I'm going to make a mistake. I popped this in here, and I usually do like one side at a time. I removed the release paper, I pressed it down, and I'm like, oh no. There is a protective covering on the inside of the shaker panel. I couldn't remember if it was inside or outside. I was really hoping outside at this point, but I left this in to remind you, remove that. So I did, and now I will flip it over, and I just press each of the 4 sides of this shaker cover into the adhesive, but I'm going to do 3 just for now because I want to add my shaker bits. Okay, so I've pressed those down, and then I'm grabbing my very favorite embellishments. These are sparkle spots. I have them in fuchsia, white, and blue. These are very flat, very sparkly. So if you were just using recycled packaging instead of using a shaker cover, the shaker covers dome a little. You get a little more room in there. But if you were using thinner packaging for this, it would still work beautifully, okay? I'm just shaking a bunch in there. It is a full A2 panel, and when that looks good, I'll flip it over, make sure everything's flat, and then I'll remove the release paper and press down our final side. Okay, so we're going to do a little bit of decorating on the front here. This is from Emergency Card Essentials die set number 3, my friends. This is the die set that has the pop-up and slider in it, but I love these pieces maybe as much as the pop-up, okay? So it sort of creates a hill or a decorative element. I cut it 3 times from purple, blue, and pink, and I've just saved the other pieces. I like to bulk make cards with this little piece on the right-hand side. Because this is a shaker, I am using the Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. It's what comes with the glue press. I just think it adheres to acetate a little better than some other glues. But if yours is a different glue, you might just let it sit for a second before you put it on the acetate so it doesn't slide absolutely everywhere. And then I am also lining that up carefully because there is a little extra plastic hanging out on those 3 sides. I wanted it centered over the cardstock that we stenciled. So here's my Celebrate. I did add one more layer of cardstock behind it, mostly because I had already cut it and I didn't want to stick it in the back of the package. You could skip that. And then I'll set that on my card and we're going to do a little bit of stamping. So this is another older favorite set, and it is, I think, called Supporting Sentiments. Yes, it's Supporting Script Sentiments. I love the font on this one, and it is such a perfect companion for a lot of really basic word dies. And if you haven't checked out word dies at Trinity lately, it's the Simply Sentimental sentiments that they're really known for. You'll see that a little bit later on, but these also pair well with a lot of those. So I've chosen You Make Me Smile. The first time I stamped it, I didn't like it, so I did it one more time. And then this is Emergency Card Essentials #1, and it has a lot of just really great basics. And so I'm going to use the 3/8 inch strip die. I cut it once, and then I'm going to line it up on the other side and cut it again because I like the beveled edge that I get from a die instead of just using my trimmer. Also, I'm terrible at trying to get it straight with my trimmer. Then I have a piece of darker teal cardstock that is a little narrower than a 1/2 inch to give me just a little bit of a border. So I line it up on the top, bottom, and left so that everything has the same margin. And then I'll just trim off on that right-hand side until it matches. You saw me with my cloth there. That ink is a pigment ink, so it wasn't entirely dry yet. I didn't want to smear it. So I just put the cloth over the top so I could press down firmly. Then again, I'm coming back in with my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. We have Celebrate, You Make Me Smile, and you could just add that onto an A2 card base. But again, we're making a pop-up. So this is Emergency Card Essentials #3, and this is the biggest pop-up in there. So I have the largest H piece, and I have a strip of acetate that's a little narrower than 2¼ inches. There's double-sided tape on one end, and I'm just wrapping it around that H. I'm leaving myself the tiniest bit of wiggle room, but I'm just layering that plastic right on top of itself, right? And that's recycled packaging from, I don't know, maybe some cardstock. You can see it moves pretty well, and I'm trimming off the excess right below that adhesive. I'm just doing this for you, but I put a little line on top of that adhesive, pushed it all the way to the top, flipped it over, and put another line all the way at the bottom. Next, I used the largest rectangle die, and I cut one from acetate, one from light pink, and one from dark pink. And I'll use the largest half moon to cut a notch out of the dark pink. It's just centered on there. And then I have the word pull. It's a stamp from Papercrafting Magic. It has all of your push, pull, interactive card sentiments in there. I'll stamp that on the light pink, and then I've got my notch cut out, but my pull tab is going to be a little sturdier this way, and I love the contrast of colors on there. Next, I'm going to add some more double-sided adhesive on the two sort of marker lines that I made. One is going right over top of the first piece of adhesive, and the other is when you flip it over on the opposite side, on the opposite end. So one's on the top and one's on the bottom, okay? So I'm kind of lining this up towards the bottom. I don't want to be able to see that black cardstock. It's black just so you guys can see it better. So I pushed mine up just a little bit, and then I'm figuring out where I want my pull tab to be. Mine will hang out the bottom. It'll be a little bigger than an A2 card, but that doesn't bother me. And once I get that sort of figured out, right, how much is going to hang off my card, then I can add my H piece, my mechanism on top of it. Okay, so here it is again. I'm trying to make sure everything is straight. I'm using the grid on my mat to do that. I'm going to grab this piece. I want my adhesive at the top. Okay, so it's at the top. I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to line that up with the pencil marks that I made that are just there to kind of remind me of where I want to place this. And then I will lay that down. The only sticky part of this is where that double-sided adhesive tape was, okay? And when I pull this, you can see the other adhesive is moving. It's working correctly. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and trim off that excess cardstock. You probably don't have to, but I don't know. It just tidies things up for me, and I kind of like it that way. I'm using some standard foam strips. This is a regular like 2mm foam strip, and I'm putting them on the H on the same side where we adhered the pink pulleys, okay? And I'm lining everything up with my grid one more time. This is maybe even more important than the first set that we did. So my card is aligned with the vertical lines, and then my pull tab bottom is going to be aligned with one of those horizontal lines. And I'm just making sure, right, I'm approximately where my pencil lines were, but these are all going to sit straight. And then I will pull it again. Every time I do something additional, I make sure that I can pull it and everything is moving correctly. So here's the acetate piece. And I want to tuck this down so you can't see it at the top of the card. And I'm going to add a little piece of tape that shows me where the pulley starts. Then I'm grabbing another older favorite, the celebration balloons, and I had cut a whole bouquet of balloons. You guys, it's way too big. They're way too big, but there are lots of sizes in here. So I'm going to grab the card front and I'm like, oh man, there's no way, right? So I'm checking. I'm like, okay, at its tallest, what will show? How much of this will show? So I can decorate on that acetate from the top to the bottom of that yellow tape. Before I start gluing things down, I'm just going to kind of round the corners on this acetate. I use the die to cut it out, and it creates this sort of white border that I think draws attention to it when you cut it from acetate. So I just rounded them. It's not perfect. It doesn't matter. No one's going to notice. Okay. And I'm double checking. Okay. Top of that arch to the bottom of the yellow tape. That's the space that I get. When I lay my balloons down, I am going ever so slightly above the arch just to clean up the look of it, which means I won't go quite all the way down to the tape, but it gives me a really great visual guide. So I'm just layering on my balloons. I'll do 7 balloons total. I like the odd number. The first 4 were really easy. They're just sort of matching the arch, but then the last 3, I got them where I wanted, and I was like, we're just going to sort of stick the tip of my glue bottle in there because I didn't dare move them. At this point, again, it's acetate, so I'm using my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. And then I'm just going to bend this back a little bit and add glue on some of those tiny little bits. I'm using Graphics shrink film for my plastic. It's super heavyweight and crystal clear and pretty affordable. So if you don't have a heavyweight acetate to do pop-ups like this, I highly recommend it. I'm just checking everything, right? I'm going to want to lay this down so my balloons are below the top of my card. And then it does mean I have acetate that's going to hang a little below the adhesive. Not a big deal. As long as it's not hanging out the bottom of my card, it doesn't matter. I'll pull on my pull tab. Everything's moving well. And then we'll start adding our foam tape. Normally, I would add it all the way up the sidebars on both sides, but my balloons actually come down a little bit on both sides. So I'm making sure not to impede the balloons. And then I have to double up my foam tape on the sides, right? So it's 2 layers thick. On the left in particular, I added an extra strip because most people are right-handed. And I want to make sure you can get a solid grip on that when you pull on it. So here's my shaker. I added more double-sided adhesive on the back, especially I'm overlapping where the sort of plastic panel meets the cardstock, right? I like to just reinforce that, and then I'll bring in my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. So I've got a little bit of instant grab and a little bit of wiggle time. I'm going to add this onto a white card panel. Okay. I didn't want to add the shaker directly onto the foam tape because not all of it would be adhered. This just seemed more secure to me. And then once that's on there, I will remove all the backing paper from that foam tape. I still have all my big balloons out. That was a dream that didn't come true. I have to make a bigger card, but I'll probably do that next week. So all that backing paper, I'm going to add a little bit of glue over top of the foam that is not on my black H mechanism. Okay, I don't want to risk getting glue onto the balloons and then it doesn't move, but this lets me just lightly lay it on there. It's sort of floating on that glue. I can wiggle it if I need to, and then I will press it when I'm sure it's in place. And I'm going to pull that pull tab. Everything's pulling out pretty well. I had a little bit of something like stuck up there, but I'm going to add one more sentiment. This is a Simply Sentimental set. So you can see we have big birthday stamps and then lots of sub-sentiments. And then we have on the back, I keep my dies. We have all those same birthday words, but in dies. And so I have just added some rip and stick tape onto the back of this one, and I'll add it on to some white shimmer cardstock as the backer. I will link to all the Simply Sentimentals for you. I just think that they are so clever and so brilliant, and I get so much use out of them. I love that you get different fonts for all of the words. But this is going to overlap our balloons at the top. I should have done this before I put the foam tape on there and put the card together, but you know, sometimes you get a wild hair. I stamped and heat embossed just the word happy, and normally I use a die, but I thought, wouldn't it be great if this was a little bit wonky? It felt appropriate here. So I have happy birthday, and I've kept these pretty thin. That white shimmer cardstock is a 65 pound because I haven't checked the depth of the foam tape to make sure that everything's gonna fit. It's feeling brave. So yeah, no extra layers on this. You'll notice I didn't stamp anything on that bottom pink pull tab because that's where I'll write my greeting. I didn't put this on a regular card base, but here it is. We have this lovely shaker. You could do just a shaker, and then you pull it down. We get this great pop-up, and I'll write a nice greeting in there. My friends, I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope that you'll try this out. The Emergency Card Essentials die set is available on sale for the first time. So go ahead and check that out in the shop. Thank you all so much for spending your time with me, and I will see you next time.